You're listening to a download from the outdoorstation.co.uk.
Number 326.
Welcome to part 2 of the Channel Island Way series, sponsored by visitguernsey.com and based upon the guide The Channel Island Way, published by Coast Media in 2011. The book links together all the coastal walks around the islands of Alderney, Guernsey, Herm, Jersey and Sark to create a continual 110-mile route. We were invited by Visit Guernsey to walk sections of the guide and produce a series of podcasts about the walks, the islands and some of the people we met en route. You join us now just after the boat docks on Sark Island on a sunny June afternoon. We've arrived today in Sark via the Sark Shipping Company, which is a 50-minute ferry ride from Guernsey. The water was fairly calm and we shot across in good style, and thankfully the weather has been fairly pleasant, a bit blowy but overcast and occasional sunshine, which makes for some excellent walking. I've always wanted to visit Sark. I've seen Sark on various travel programmes over the years, and it looked incredibly charming, particularly as there is obviously no motor vehicles as such, but walking and cycling is recommended and making it very, very family friendly from that point of view. We've been surprised by the number of tractors, really, the agricultural vehicles. Just like Herm had their quad bikes, which served a very practical purpose of towing and delivering goods, moving things around the island, it makes sense and obviously common sense that Sark has something similar to do the same. So the tractor duly towed various bits of luggage up to the heart of the islands, the metropolis, and we strolled up the avenue to collect our bikes from Avenue Cycles, as it happens, and saw the cluster of buildings there. A couple of banks, a few gift shops, various bistros and coffee houses, and down the different avenues, of which there's probably about half a dozen, obviously leads to various places which offer different types of accommodation, everything from campsites, guest houses, B&Bs to more luxurious hotels. And in fact that's where we're heading this evening. We've been invited to stay at Stock's Hotel on the island, right in the centre of the island, and from living a fairly humble existence yesterday on Herm, on the campsite, we're going to the other end of the scale, the flashbacking scale I think you'd call it, as I believe the hotel's had a complete refurbishment and caters for a different marketplace. So that'll be interesting to see and appreciate a bit of luxury. But in the meantime, we've got the Channel Island Way book to use as a reference. So we've taken our cycles and we've headed off down to the southeast part of the island to do the part of the walk in sections. I thought that was the easiest way we could do it because we don't have enough time to do the whole walk as we'd like to. So we headed round Derribble Bay and Dixcart Bay and La Coupe before heading back onto the bikes and heading north up to Epicurie Common, where we are now, by Les Fontaines, which is the northern part of the island, and from here we can look out towards Herm and Alderney and there's various other lumps which I'm sure have got various names, but I'm not too sure of exactly the rotation of the island. But certainly looking back at Herm, we've just both commented on what a luxury their Shell Beach is. It stands out a mile away from where we're sitting at the moment, and I was surprised to find that the Sark doesn't really have anything to compete from a beach point of view.
No, it's all bays and coves and pebbles and rocks, really.
But the walking itself, the coastal walk, and certainly referring to the guide's very clear for people perhaps aren't used to walking or would like their hand held a bit more, shall we say, as they take on a coastal path. It's undulating. I wouldn't say it's anywhere near as tough as perhaps coastal walking around the south coast of the UK, where you have steep declines and steep inclines. It's hilly in places, but because the island itself doesn't drop down to many beaches, you don't have obviously the appropriate climbing to do. But certainly easy walking, pair of trainers and some light clothing and you're sorted.
Yeah, and the paths are well trodden, so they're fairly clear and the undergrowth's cut back. It's beautiful at this time of year. There's lots of flowers out, and overriding scent of honeysuckle. There's lots and lots of wild honeysuckle out at the moment, which is glorious.
So we've been fairly lucky with the weather, as I say. We are staring out across the sea at the moment and watching the ferry return to Guernsey, and as I say, looking back at Herm, which is each character. I mean, Jonathan was saying before we left how much we would find that each island in the cluster has a very, very specific character, and we didn't know whether to believe him as such, but certainly arriving on Sark, there is a different... There's the same sort of gentle pace to it, but you definitely get feeling this is more of a community which is a lived-in community, whereas obviously Herm is much more, as he clearly explained, a sort of a one business organisation, so it has a different sort of feel of control to it. Nothing negative about it, just a definite sort of unified purpose, whereas Sark has definitely got various areas of interest, but still as a destination, as a walking destination, there's certainly a reasonable amount of walking here to do, and the views are just not disappointing in any direction.
With over 1 million listeners worldwide, The Outdoors Station is the leading online audio resource for those into the great outdoors.
The coastal path around Sark is just one of hundreds of walking links between the many and varied little cottages and buildings tucked away from the wind in the remote nooks and crannies around the island. By day, there's an old-world innocent charm on these footpaths and unpaved roads, and you feel transported back to simpler times. High hedgerows, abundant with wildlife and flowers, behind which the laughter of children playing and people talking are the only sounds to be heard drifting overhead. The ever-perpetual roar of traffic, TV and modern life, already a distant mainland memory. But by night, there's a whole new world of entertainment opening up on Sark, something the islanders have taken for granted for years. They have officially been awarded a coveted Dark Sky Award. Here's Paul Williams, Chairman of Sark Agriculture and Environment, to explain.
It was an elderly lady living on the island called Felicity Belfield that very interested in astronomy, and she wondered if anything could be done extra on the island. She got in touch with various people and various committees of our Chief Pleas, and from thence on it got going, and we decided to get some people in to take a light audit to see whether we would be able to get a designation as a Dark Skies Island. A gentleman called Steve Owen and some colleagues came down and took a light audit of all the buildings. We don't have street lights anyway, so that wasn't a concern and a bonus straight away. All the lighting on the hotels and such. And they took those results away, collated it and sent back. And then we realised that we could get a designation.
The result of that audit, you said that the other islands were actually, there was quite a lot of light coming from those?
From Guernsey, St Peter Port itself, the glow from St Peter Port was very, very high. But fortunately, if you go onto the other side of Sark or down the coast, you lose that glow, so you can see up into the dark skies on the right nights when there's no moon and the skies are clear. So that was a little concern. Anyway, this gentleman, Steve Owens, helped us tremendously. He thought it was a wonderful idea, and he took it forward to the Dark Skies Association, the IDA in the United States, with our application. They deliberated quite a while because they couldn't understand why we didn't have street lights or things like that. Anyway, once that was explained to them, they said, yeah, we think you're okay, and gave us a designation. And this was, where are we, in February.
February of 2011.
Yes, yeah. And, well, we were thrilled to get the designation, and we're hoping that it'll. We're not going to get thousands and thousands of tourists on the back of it, but we certainly will get more than we would have done before.
Well, it's if anything, it's raised awareness, and so I would have thought families, and particularly anybody who wants to show their children what the sky really looks like, to have an island just off the UK coast here that does that must be terrific. I mean, you've been living here, I presume, for years. You're used to the sky, but to a lot of people, they've never seen the night sky.
Not the kind of night sky we get. No. You're right, we are used to it, and to look up there and see hundreds of thousands, well, literally millions of twinkling stars there, it's some sight to behold. And of course, you're quite right, there are so many people that haven't seen anything like that because they live in a city, look up and all they see is this orange glow and the moon occasionally. So hopefully, yes, it will boost our tourism.
Well, we've just started the tourist season as such, I suppose, with you being June now, and with the award being so recent, obviously it's fairly new and it's out in there, I presume, in the press. But I understand that there's an event taking place in October, and they've already had quite a few inquiries for people to come along.
They have indeed, yes, and of course the summer months aren't the best time for dark skies. It's more a winter occupation, and of course this is when, hopefully now that we've got more hotels being built and opening up, that we can fill them through the winter. It's and funnily enough, campsites. We've been told, although I wouldn't do it myself, that there are lots and lots of people that will actually get out there and camp overnight, even in the snow. So, and they just love it.
Well, you're talking to two people that do that on a fairly regular basis.
Fair enough. Yeah. So well, you're precisely the type of people we want to come and look at our dark skies.
Well, I'm sure this will all help raise awareness, but I'm sure that the Sark website will inform people as regards the details of the event that's taking place in October. Now, you were saying you've obviously been here yourself for a fair few years, and I understand you wear quite a few hats, not just one associated with the dark skies.
No, as I said, the dark skies part of it was through the Agricultural Committee, of which I'm chairman, and we're agriculture and environmental matters. That's how this came about. And I'm also chairman of Public Works, which is another very interesting committee, because we look after all like any other public works. We look after the sewage and the rubbish and the roads and such things like that. And because our roads are just dirt roads, that can be a very interesting occupation, trying to keep them sorted in the winter mud and in the summer dust.
Right. Well, you're not wearing a suit and tie, so I presume you're one of these people. Actually, you might be on the committee, but you're also the one out on the roads doing the digging and the sorting.
Yes, I do that as well. Yes. So you could one day you could see me in my tractor doing my day job, which is delivering soft drinks and frozen foods, and the next day you might see me along the road cleaning out the gutters or such things like that.
Out of interest, on that role that you're talking about now, do the number of visitors that you get over the year, does it put a lot of pressure on the infrastructure of the island, or is the island able to cope with up to sort of a certain number?
It's always been able to cope fairly well, yes, with a certain number. In fact, the numbers are well down on what I remember from the mid-70s, when there were upwards of 1,000 people arriving on the island every day via Jersey and Guernsey. So it's way down on that. But I don't think we'll ever go back to those numbers, because the Channel Islands themselves were the golden years for all the islands.
And was the reason for the visitors, is it purely financial, or is there a change of mindset, do you think?
A bit of both, I think, really. But Sark itself is ideal for families. Perfect. There's any kids can run around, enjoy themselves. No fear of getting knocked down, or if they would be, it would be by somebody on a bicycle. So it is a lovely place for families, super beaches to go down to, lovely walks.
And of course, a beautiful starry sky.
Say no more. Perfect.
You're listening to theoutdoorstation.co.uk.
You may recall in part 1 that our previous night's accommodation had been our compact two-man tent on Herm's quiet little campsite. On Sark, once we had covered a few miles around the coast, we checked into our next accommodation, the newly refurbished Stocks Hotel, located right in the heart of the island. The accommodation was luxurious, the features uniquely individual, and the bed so big we didn't know whether to sleep in it or pitch the tent on it. It's one thing to move between campsite and the luxury of a hotel, however, it's entirely another when the hotel is at this opulent level, and by pure coincidence, we were the only guests that particular evening, so we had the full attention of all the staff totally focused on us for 24 hours. Paul Armagy is the manager of this delightful property.
Stocks has been our family home since 1978. My parents bought the hotel at the back end of the 70s. They became disillusioned with life in the UK and decided that they wanted us to downshift, really, to downsize. Stocks was available. We had a love of islands as a family. We'd always, as a family, holidayed in the Isles of Scilly, as it happens. And my mum in particular had this desire to want to have a change of lifestyle. And we've been here ever since. Stocks became our home in 1978. We've raised our 3 children here. They're now all in their teens. My mum's still alive. My mum lives next door to the hotel. And we are very much part of the Sark communities. Stocks is at the centre of the island and the heart of Sark. And we enjoy living here. We love living here. And we love sharing the hotel with people who visit the island.
I presume you must have been a teenager when you moved here?
Bless you, you're very kind. I was 23, actually, when we moved to Sark, so it's been my home ever since. I was a single guy, and I didn't meet my wife in Sark, but I met my wife in the UK. And we got married in Sark in 1990. Our 3 children were born in the early 90s, all christened in Sark, and born locally as well. And so, we're very proud to call Sark our home, although we have a very strange surname. The surname originally comes from France. It's a Huguenot name, and we were hounded out of France during that period into UK. So we feel in some ways, in coming to live in Sark, we've come back close to our roots, close to Normandy, close to Brittany. People assume it's a local name, but in fact it's not a local name. It just had a sort of French connotation. In fact, the French pronounce it Armagy with a soft G, whereas the English tend to pronounce it Armagy with a hard G. But no, it is home. We're delighted to call it home. We enjoy living on the island. We interact within the island. Sark is a living and working community. It's not a museum. It's not a theme park. It is a working, fishing, farming community. Tourism is important to us, but it's not the only thing that happens on Sark. People are fascinated by what makes the island tick, how we survive, the logistics of being here, and how we get products within the island. And we are at the end of a very long line of supply, and everything that you see on the island has had to be imported. And that is a challenge in itself. But it's part of our lifestyle, and it's something that you come to get used to. And full well you can't just nip round to the local supermarket if you need something. You've got to think in advance, and therefore there's a lot of forward planning that goes into living on Sark. And you're always keeping an eye on the weather forecast as well. So, is the weather going to be rough or stormy or wet? Or is the boat going to run? We have a very good boat service actually from Guernsey, but it is occasionally prone to delays due to weather. So you've got to be a bit flexible. Anyone that comes to Sark has got to be aware that if you've got a flight booked from Guernsey on a Tuesday lunchtime and it blows up rough on a Tuesday morning, the boat might not run on Tuesday morning, and that is a challenge. Well, it's part of the challenge of coming to Sark, really.
Let's just go back to when you first arrived. You're obviously very much part of the community now, and we'll come on to that in a moment. But has the island, has the vibe to the island changed at all since the 70s?
I think not. I mean, people say Sark is timeless. I think that's a slight overstatement. It's not. Sark has moved with the times. It's had to react to the times, and so it's not the same place that it was when we first moved here. But I think it's changed less than some other destinations, simply because of where we are, the fact that there are no motor cars here, and that we have our the lifestyle, our sort of chosen lifestyle. So yes, there has been a change, but we have things now, luxuries now, such as broadband internet, obviously improved communications, and those sorts of things. But the basic core lifestyle is still the same. We still have no motor cars, so people have to either walk or bicycle or ride horses or go on horses and carriages. So the basic fundamental style of the island really hasn't changed a great deal.
I've always wanted to come to Sark. Sark has been this mysterious island in my mind, and I've seen various programmes over the years, obviously typical travel programmes. And what I'm surprised about is just how far the various buildings are spread from each other, and how much work must have been involved, as you say, in the practicalities of sourcing materials, sourcing the labour, sourcing the key component parts that you need. The preparation and planning involved in building the infrastructure here is not to be sniffed at. And then, of course, things you take for granted, like the water purification, electricity, things that people assume to be there on tap. There's an awful lot of work that goes into that infrastructure, isn't there?
It is, and it doesn't happen automatically. You really have to think about it very carefully. And you're absolutely right to touch on things such as water supply and make sure that we have got a clean source of water, and that it is not just clean but also sufficient as well. And so, yes, anything that you see on the island, you have to plan very, very carefully. There are some local building materials available, local stone, a little bit of local timber, and those sorts of things, but most of what's here has to be imported. Also, the building regulations on Sark are quite strict, not necessarily in terms of the quality. That is driven by the individual owners of the individual properties, but you just can't arrive on Sark and throw up any old building. So thankfully, there is protection of Sark's heritage in that sense, so you don't see ribbon development in Sark. And Sark is really, it's a series of hamlets, really. So you'll walk round a corner, you'll walk into a valley, and you'll see a little group of properties, largely tucked away from the prevailing winds, because that's when Sark was first settled. Sea views were not important to people in those days. It was far more important to build your property close to a reliable well, or in a sheltered position or south-facing position. And so that's where you see most of the development on Sark. It is very much traditional development in little hamlets around the island. And certainly when you first arrive on the island by boat, you think, oh my goodness me, is Sark inhabited? You can see very little habitation at all, because everything is tucked away from the cliff edges and in nooks and crannies and valleys around the island. And so therefore, that's the structure of Sark, really, is small hamlets scattered throughout the island.
The history of Sark, and politically the way it was broken up when it was sort of first established, there's nothing freehold, is it? It's all sort of leasehold. And how do the leases work? Is it a 99-year lease, or are they all sort of fairly flexible?
Now, there is a real a question and a half in terms of the structure of Sark. Essentially, the simplest way to describe Sark is it is a sort of it is a crown dependency. So, in effect, the Queen of England, Her Majesty the Queen, in effect owns the island, and the island is held in perpetuity by, in this case, the Seigneur of Sark, and he pays 1/20th of a knight's ransom, which equates in modern terms to £1.79 per year, to hold the island from the Crown, and he looks after it for the Crown. Within that, therefore, everything is in effect is then a sublease from the Crown. So Sark is a bit like a royal estate in that respect. And those leases can be anything from 99 years to 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. It's up to the individual land owner then to negotiate that lease. So in simple terms, it's owned by the Crown. It's then subleased to a number of people within that. So you're right, there is no freehold in Sark. Everything is either rented or leased, essentially, from the Crown.
And so where does that leave you and your family? You've been here since the 70s, and the investment that we'll come on to shortly with the Stocks Hotel. You're investing in something that's presumably a leasehold property, so is it sort of a bit of a wish list or a hope that the lease is going to be a rolling lease?
We're blessed at Stocks. We have a very long lease. In fact, our lease actually is longer than 99 years, as it happens. We negotiated a very long lease a few years ago, and so we have slightly more value in that lease than someone who has a short lease. And clearly, as you walk around the island, you'll see some property and think, well, why isn't somebody spending money on that property? And often it'll be because it is just a short lease. So sometimes short leases are not providing the best in terms of protection of the quality of the properties. But here at Stocks, we've invested in the length of our lease, and we've then invested in the quality of the property beyond the length of the lease. We wouldn't have done so had we not had a reasonable length of lease.
You're listening to the award-winning UK Business Podcaster of the Year.
The home of UK-based audio and video podcasts for lovers of the great outdoors everywhere.
Podcasts are based solely around self-powered travel.
This is the Outdoor Station.
Well, certainly we've just had a look around the hotel with you, and I have to say it's absolutely gorgeous on every level. And I think as somebody that's done a bit of DIY from time to time, what's impressed me most of all is coming back all the time to the pure logistics of the quality of the workmanship, the artisans that you must have employed, and certainly from some of the things you were telling me, the background infrastructure in the steelwork to reinforce the old buildings and then refurbish it internally. It is absolutely beautiful.
Well, it's very kind of you. Thank you very much indeed. Obviously, we're dealing with a fantastic quality building to start with, a lovely old granite building dating back to 1741. The original farmhouse dates back. In fact, the old outbuildings probably predate the farmhouse beyond that. And therefore, when you're dealing with a building of that age, you almost look at the building and say, what does it deserve? And that's what we've tried to do with the refurbishment, is to say, what does a building of this character, this style, this age deserve? And we have had to fabricate from within, and we have built a brand new steel frame, which you can't see, but it's built within the structure of the original building, in order to support the upper floors and indeed the roof. But the roof line has not changed, so anyone that looks at the building today and remembers the building from 20, 30 years ago will see the same external dimensions of the building. But yes, in order to achieve what we've achieved, we've had to work very carefully. We had to plan very, very carefully. We brought materials in from all around the world. For instance, the slates on the roof are from Brazil. The timber, the oak, has come from Wales. The furniture has come from the Far East, and that in itself was a logistical challenge. And we've had to rent warehousing en route as staging posts, and then as we were ready then to draw down the various pieces of equipment, we then brought them onto site. But it was an 18-month, like a military exercise, quite frankly, in getting everything in place in time to create what we've created. And the watchword throughout has been quality. We looked at the building, and the building demanded, I believe, to have lots of TLC, lots of care and attention, and lots of quality. So everything we've done, we've avoided going for the cheap end of the market. And so, all the furniture in the bedrooms is all solid oak furniture. All the exterior oak is all solid, proper oak. There's very few man-made materials involved. We've looked at raw, granite sets in the granite cobbles on the outside and the paving. So it is the character. We've tried to retain the character of what we've got. It would have been much cheaper to have taken a cheaper option, but I think that would have been an insult, quite frankly, to the quality of the original structure. So that's really why we've done what we've done.
The concept of the island being the way that it is, and you having a whole range of accommodation here, you've obviously got camping and bed and breakfast and guest houses through to this end of the market as well. What I'm curious to know is the type of clientele that you're getting through at the moment and the demand, because obviously you wouldn't do this unless you had demand from the people that have that kind of budget and appreciate the features and the facilities that you have here. But are they still outdoor people, should we say? They appreciate the environment. They're active people, I presume, when they need to be to get around, because obviously you either walk here or you cycle, and they just happen to have a better budget.
Absolutely. And what we've done is very much not on a whim, it's very much in response to a demand from our customers. Our customers over the years have said, we love Sark, we like the island very much indeed, we like everything about it, but we want equality. We don't want to be staying somewhere where perhaps the water doesn't work and there's, you can't have a bath in the middle of the night if you want a bath in the middle of the night. So everything has been driven from a quality end, and we're not the cheapest place within the island to stay. We know that, but people know that we do offer equality, and they can go out and they can rough it throughout the day, and they can be out walking in all weathers and enjoying what the island has to offer, either on land or around the coast of Sark. In the knowledge that when they do come back, and they might perhaps have got wet in a shower of rain, they can come back, they can take off their outdoor clothes, they can take off their boots, put them in the boot room, hang up their coats to dry, and then know that they've got absolute luxury in terms of being able to have a pleasant bath or shower, get changed for dinner, come down for dinner. So we are very much at the luxury end of the market, but it's people who at the same time are independent in their thinking, and also demand a level of quality, but also enjoy the island for what it has to offer. So it's striking that balance, which has been core to what we do, but it's been very much driven by demand from our customers.
And as a result, you've relaunched now, reopened in February of 2011. Here we are 3 or 4 months in, and demand's already high?
It is. The weekend demand is much greater than the midweek demand, and we're working on that at the moment, trying to entice people to come across between Monday and Thursday. And we've got a number of packages that we're putting together at the moment, where we're packaging a boat fare into a 2 or 3 night stay, a horse and carriage ride, or perhaps a bicycle, to try and attract more midweek business. But certainly the demand for accommodation on Sark on a Friday, Saturday, and Sunday is paramount, and that demand is driven not only from locally from Guernsey and Jersey, but also from the UK, and people coming out to the island for a long weekend and to be able to enjoy it whenever. But the challenge is making Sark more attractive to people midweek, really. And also the other beauty of Sark midweek is it is quieter midweek. At weekends, the boats do tend to be quite full coming across from Guernsey and Jersey, and if you haven't perhaps pre-booked a passage on a boat on a Friday or a Saturday, it can sometimes be difficult to get on a boat. So whereas midweek, there's more capacity on the boats, or there's more space on the boats, and therefore there's a more relaxed pace about the island midweek than there would necessarily be at the weekend.
The final thing is, we've obviously had to tour around, but I've lost track of how many rooms you've actually got and suites. And what about things like the conference market and the wedding market? Does this appeal to them?
Absolutely. Stocks has traditionally not only been a leisure hotel where people have come to rest and relax and unwind. We do have a small conference market, particularly with businesses from Guernsey and Jersey who are looking for an away day as a business meeting or a day out for their employees. Weddings are also very much a big part of what Sark has to offer, not week in and week out. This year, for instance, we've got 3 weddings booked here at Stocks, and we can cater for groups up to about 100 people, give or take. We can provide a marquee in the grounds. And Sark is a lovely place to get married. It's a very attractive environment. We can decorate the horse and carriage and have the horse and carriage to meet the bride and groom, take them to the church, from the church. It's a very romantic setting for a wedding, and that's certainly a big part of what we do. Again, it's very difficult to come to Sark and just get married on Sark and dash in the morning and dash out in the evening or the afternoon. So most people who come for a wedding on the island tend to stay for 2 or 3 days, arrive the day before, enjoy the wedding, and then perhaps have a day relaxing, unwinding after the wedding. So it's a big part of what we offer, and will continue to be so. Sark is, say, a very romantic place to be.
Well, talking about the romance of the island, and obviously definitely that your visitors appreciate its unique surroundings. The final question has to be, you've been here for 20, 30 odd years now. Where's your favourite part of the island?
That's a very good question. Quite frankly, on a day or afternoon off, there's nothing my wife and I enjoy more than going to the very north end of Sark, an area called the Bec du Nez, or the Apercury Common, which is one of the original landing points on the island. It's a lovely mixture of quite low-lying area of Sark and there's an old harbour there, and there's a beautiful bay called the Fontaine Bay, and it's very quiet, and it's very peaceful, it's very tranquil, and there's a couple of benches up there, and you can sit on the benches and just watch the world go by. You can watch the boats come in and the boats go out, the ferries scuttle backwards and forwards between Herm and Guernsey, and it's just a lovely part of the world. You can literally sit there and you've got the whole of the Channel Islands at your feet. You can see Guernsey, you can see Herm, you can see Alderney, round the corner you can see Jersey and indeed Brecon also, and that's just a fantastic spot. And we often will take a picnic with us, maybe a bottle of wine, and we'll just sit there and watch the world go by, and you've got gulls sweeping in and out. You've often got a peregrine falcon swooping around up there as well, and it's just a lovely part of the island to be in. It's very much a favourite part of Sark as far as we're concerned.
So you've got, ultimately no desire to get back into sort of the more dense populations dotted around the world at all?
No, Sark is as I said previously, is a lovely place to live and to work. It's not the real world, I have to say to you, and therefore once in a while we like to have a little absorption into something a bit more realistic. And friends and relations of ours who live in the UK, we go and visit them on a regular basis. Well, I say regular, twice a year. But it's important to keep a sense of balance in these things. That Sark is a delightful place to live and to work, but there is the real world out there as well, and to keep touch with the real world is, I think, very important, a sense of balance. And our children now also feel that as well, and they've been educated on Sark and then also currently at university away from Sark, but they love coming back to Sark and bringing their friends back to Sark, and there's great sort of kudos involved in that, because it means that they're sharing their home, their island, with their friends from the UK, and it is quite special to them as well. But no, you do need a sense of balance in all of these things.
As Paul rightly states, Sark isn't quite the real world, but it is one to escape to and explore as it slowly unfolds before you like an early morning bloom. My thanks to everyone involved in this episode and to the sponsor of the Channel Island Way series, visitguernsey.com. More information about the remarkable island of Sark can be found at sark.info, and this includes travel to and from the island, accommodation, a diary for the year, and of course details of the Dark Sky Award. Our guide, The Channel Island Way, is published by Channel Island map specialists Coast Media and written by Blue Badge guide Arthur Lamy. The book is available from amazon.co.uk, priced at $9.95, and in visitor centres and book retailers throughout the islands. Join us next time as we continue our time on Sark and travel to the south side of the island, seeking some of the treasures which go to make up Little Sark.
This sponsored programme has been brought to you by The Outdoor Station, the exciting new way to see and hear free information about the outdoors world. Visit our website, theoutdoorstation.co.uk, for more information.